Who has the best defensive back room in the NFC East? We'll take a look right here on Ref the District. Let's go. Greetings and salutations and welcome to Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry, running it solo today, so make sure you give me a like for the work that I'm putting in here on our last NFC East position rankings. Don't forget to sub up on the channel so that you can catch all the content and check out all of the position rankings that we've done. And then don't forget also to join us live on Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern, where you can join the conversation. Myself and Trev will be there this week. Now, I did mention this is our last position rankings. Now, if you're an astute watcher, you might have realized, well, wait, we still have cornerbacks and safeties. That's right. We're just going to go ahead and combine both of these rooms, not just because I'm doing this solo, but because training camp is here. We want to move forward. You know, we've taken a look at the positions. Let's check out all the things that the Commanders are doing. So we're going to go ahead and group these together. It didn't really change my rankings. I felt like 2 through 4 were pretty close, and perhaps I was too harsh on one team. We all know who number 1 is, and we're going to skip over that pretty, by and large. But I did want to make sure that we go through each of these and see where the position, the defensive back rooms look like. Now, before we get to my list, make sure you jump into that comment section as well and let me know how you feel about this room. And then you can argue with me as we get through some of these points. Now, the bottom of the rankings, as it has been by and large through most of these, are the New York Football Giants. I don't think that they're a bad room. They had some really good things when it came to some of the analytics to this, but the room itself is not really great, right? Deonte Banks is probably your headliner, and he was actually the one that was ranked the worst. He was just above Noah Iggy for the Washington Commanders, which, as much as we love him, didn't grade out to be an especially great player. Outside of that, though, you have Kare Elam, you have Andrew Phillips, not bad. You got Adebo as well. These aren't bad cornerbacks. And the safeties, Nubin, Holland, and Belton are pretty good as well. But overall, especially when you take a look at some of the stats that they had against them this entire year. So, like, if you look at the passing yards that they allowed, they're middle of the pack, right? 3,800. So they're not terrible, but they weren't exactly where it is. It actually looks like they might just be outside the top 10 as I'm re-looking at the rankings there on that particular site. So not a bad room, not a great room. The big names are the ones that are performing. And so for my position rankings, I'm putting them at the bottom. I don't think that that's a terrible thing for the Giants. As I said, 2 through 4 could be intermixed. Now, this next one might be a little bit of a surprise, because if you would have thought about this last year, that was probably the worst room in the NFC East. It was a pretty terrible looking room. And this year, there's a lot of promise, but I didn't put too much into what we hope is going to happen. And of course, that's for our Washington Commanders. Marshon Lattimore, number change. Hopefully he gets back into the rhythm. This is a guy who, when there was some games last year when he was healthy, that he wasn't targeted at all. And you're like, hey, this is what we paid for, is for them to avoid Marshon Lattimore. But then there's the games where he was picked on, like namely against the Eagles, where he continually was being called for penalties and some issues. If Marshon Lattimore gets back into his prime, right, and in his good playing days, you got the lockdown. If Trey Amos turns out to be a great, fantastic pick in the second round, then you got a lockdown there. But like I said, I don't particularly give too much stock into those rookie picks, especially ones that are outside the top 10 when we've been doing these rankings. Of course, Mikey Sanders still fantastic. He's moving into the slot. I like the depth Jonathan Jones and Noah Iggy provide. And then the safety room, we all know that I love Quan Martin. Will Harris should be a perfect replacement for Jeremy Chin, who has left. But overall, despite the fact that this was a team that gave up the third least amount of yards passing, they were not a team that I felt could overcome the the lack of talent and the lack of um, production in the sense that the passes defended, the interceptions, right? The ball is life to Joe Witt Jr., is what he likes to say. And they didn't really turn that up in the defensive back room. Now, hopefully things do change and we do start to see a little bit more of that turnover pressure because while the third least amount of yards is a great stat to have, when you looked at the rushing stats, you're like, well, is it because, or, is that correlation or causation there? When you can run the ball, why are you passing against this team? And so that's when I went to go look at some of those more, advanced stats as far as pass defended and interceptions, and which is just a box score stat, but still something that very clearly can be pointed to a good defensive back room. And I feel like that's where Washington is lacking. I have high hopes that things are going to turn around here for Washington. But when it came to kind of where you have to make the split, I felt that the Cowboys, as the number 2 team, made a little bit more sense. They have much bigger names. Part of that is because Dallas gets a way too much love when it comes to these. But Deron Bland had a fantastic year the year before last. Of course, Trayvon Diggs was injured, so he's trying to come back. But this is a young player who can be very explosive when it comes to what Joe Witt Jr. is talking about, which is the ballless life and a turnover machine. By the way, I mentioned Kara Elam. That was for Dallas. I looked at that one wrong. So if you want to yell at me again for my eyeballs not being right. And then Hooker and Wilson as your safeties, pretty good safeties for the Dallas Cowboys there. I feel like their defense is going to kind of come back into being a pretty good defense this next year. And I feel like they have the names, the talent to back up being the number 2. I think Washington again was inching at the door for me to get this number 2 ranking. But in the end, I could not justify putting Washington as low as we know that they are. I mean, they almost ended up 4th, if I'm being honest, because they just don't have people. And I'm not buying into how good the Commanders were on the pass defense until I see some more production coming out of there. Now, number 1, go ahead and gloat, you Eagles fans. You've got it. You guys got a great young tandem with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. You've got some good safeties. Well, right now, just Blankenship. But I mean, the defense was the top defense in the league last year. So there's no surprise that the Eagles have loaded up on talent. 2 young guys there at the corners. Exciting team, and they're not impenetrable. I mean, when you think about it, I know they're going to point out 55-23. Go ahead and throw that in the chat. I already know it's coming. But when you look at how Washington was able to move the ball down the field kind of relatively easy in each of the 3 games, but they made the stops when it counted, except for the second game where Washington put up a lot of points on that number 1 defense. They got the turnovers, Philadelphia did, but Jaden Daniels and team were still able to move on them. So it's not like they're the steel curtain. It's not like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens or anything like that, but they're a really good defense and they're really led by some really young guys. I mean, you're talking about 2 draft picks from 2024 who are going to be with the team for their entire rookie contract. It'll be interesting to see how, who they give money to. Is it going to be Mitchell or is it going to be DeJean Cooper out there? It's going to be real interesting. And then, of course, they have to fix their safety position. But what they've been doing is next man up, and then they've just been drafting stud after stud. So I like that Philadelphia room. I hate to say that. They're good. I'm enjoying the rivalry that Washington has with them. They're the biggest hurdle. But I think Jaden Daniels can absolutely take them apart. So don't get too high and mighty, Philadelphia fans. What do you think of my rankings? I had Philadelphia number 1, I had Dallas number 2, Washington at 3, and the Giants at 4. Where did you have them in the rankings? We're gonna ask Trev this question on Wednesday, and of course, you can join that conversation live, give your input, yell at me live on Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern. We appreciate you joining this one. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you're subbed up, and make sure you share this with your friends so that way they can join the conversation as well. This was our final NFC East position rankings. No stoner here to tell me I'm wrong or I am right. So you're going to have to do that in the comment section. But until next time, let's see some improvement, Washington. Be a fan.